Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this part, I think it's part 4, we're going to take the transmission off the back of the engine and get the engine onto the engine stand so we can spin it around and get the crank out, take the pistons out, inspect all that part of the engine, and then we're getting closer to be able to get the block to the machine shop to have that cylinder checked to see how much of a change in bore size we're going to need, you know, and then obviously size them all up, because I think I'm going to go the route of new cylinder, new pistons and rings and pins, and then rebore. So we'll talk about that a little later. So let's get the transmission off of the back of the engine and get that engine mounted on the stand. So let's get to it.
Right, underneath the transmission now, or underneath the engine, so I've removed the cover plate here, and that exposes the the pairs of bolts that go through to the it's not a torque converter, it is a, I can't think of the name now, fluid clutch in it or something, I can't remember now. They don't call it a torque converter on the 6.3. There you go, I think that's better light. So I'm going to get those undone and then rotate it round, and there's 4 pairs of those. So I've just rotated to the next pair. 13mm bolts underneath there. Let me get that. There we go. Right, now we've disconnected the gear to the rear plate of the engine, taken all the mount bolts off, disconnected the rear. I'm taking some of the weight off of the back here. I've supported the engine, front, back, and obviously that centers, so that's nice and secure. We've just got to push the transmission back, but making sure that that fluid coupler stays engaged with the transmission and goes with it. So let's see how this goes. Right, with a little persuasion and thumping, it's come adrift. Main thing is we've got to make sure that that fluid coupling stays with the transmission. Keep a firm grip on that guy. Hold on to this guy now. Make sure it don't go anywhere. Get a bit high on it. So there we have it. We can't remove this in this position. It has to be removed in the vertical position and reinstalled in the vertical position. Apparently you can damage the seals. So that is what I've understood to be. So let's get this gently onto some wood on the ground. I took the rear bracket off just so I can get it between the legs of the crane here. That's better. Now obviously the rear of the engine here, as you can see, I don't know whether you can see, I might have given it a mark here. What's going on here? So it seems to be probably some scratching, you know, and they're trying to locate it into position, you know, scratching it across here. So obviously got to take this plate off so we can take this mounting the unit off, because we obviously don't want to attach the engine stand to this thing. So let's get this guy off, and then we'll see what's going on behind. Looks like some mounting bolts here straight to the block. So let's get that off. I use my impact just to loosen these up, you know. Okay, now we're getting there. Right, now we can get to these bolts on the rear here to give us access to the mount holes, because like I say, we're not mounting to this aluminium mount plate here. So let's get these undone. All right. we have it. Okay, the rear of the crank here. And no real evidence of the rear main seal leaking, I don't think. Alright, so we're getting there. Now we've got to get this guy off of the stationary stand to the spinny stand. So let me get these bolts all bagged up and then we'll get back to you. Alright, a question back for you guys. These are the bolts that hold the flex plate on the back here. Okay, so they're threaded here, but they're a little skinny here. Now, do you know if these are stretch bolts of any kind? I doubt it, but I just want to make sure whether these can just go back in as is, or I need to order stretch bolts. But because they have this kind of thinner shaft here, and that's the only reason I'm asking. Okay, so get those all bagged up. My little labeling system here. I'm making it so even my young son, who is so completely uninterested in old cars, could put this back together. Makes you wonder, I'm assuming, again you guys can tell me, this mount plate here that goes on the back, I'm wondering if you know, these mount plates can be changed, you know, so you can mount different transmissions. I'm assuming you can, but because that would make sense, wouldn't it? All it needs to make sure the depth is correct to engage with a motor, and that would be fun, wouldn't it? A manual shifting 6.3, a 5-speed or something. Anyway, can dream on. Right. Now, as far as engine stands go, I was given this engine stand and it seemed like it had a nice wide footprint, but looking at it, I don't know. It says it's rated for £1,200, but you know, it's an old engine stand and there's a few things about it I'm not sure about. Firstly, the way it's canted back there, and you know, you're relying on that little weld down at the bottom. I really don't know. It's probably fine, and people thinking I'm over cautious, but you know, with a valuable block like this, you don't want to take any chances, do you, really? And just give you a few stats on this thing. This back plate is around just a fraction over 3/8 thick steel. These arms coming out 7/8 square bar, and it just looks a little bit underwhelming, but not a bad footprint. So let me show you what I picked up. Okay, so I got this one. Foldable legs, and they've got a spread here. They're a little bit more spread apart, so it's a little bit more stable. Okay, so that's one thing. It's also got these back straps here to reinforce on the back. It's canted back slightly, and just for comparison, this back plate is just fractionally over 3/4 inch plate steel. These blocks are 1 1/8 inch blocks, arms, okay, and obviously got the handle. This is a much heavier tube. I put a little lubricant in here so it spins easy. Other than that, it's very similar in design, but it's rated at £2,000, which is way over what the block is weighing in at. But just to be on the safe side, and this wasn't a particular, it was around 160, 170 bucks. Tube's welded through as well. The tube comes through and then it's welded, so it seems a very substantial stand. So my question to you guys is, attaching to the back here, okay, at 4 points, for various points. These don't seem deep enough. These ones probably would be good enough, but there's still only 4 points, and this thing to me hanging off an engine stand like that seems a bit precarious. I may be overly cautious, tell me if I am, and I'll just go ahead. But I'm thinking I might make an extra frame assembly here to be able to make use of the other mount holes. Also, I saw Benchcraft, he had some outriggers that reached out to these center motor mounts, like 2 arms reaching out and attached to the main head. Maybe that might be a simpler way of going about it, but I'm not putting this block on today onto that stand, even though it'd be great to do it. Okay, now we've got the engine mounted on the stand. I didn't film that because that was a bit of a pain in the butt, because the way this stand is configured along with the crane, great bits of equipment, but the two
V of the V's of the legs bump into each other, so one has to cross over, and then there's a little bit of shenanigans to get the engine mounted on the stand. But I didn't need to film that, it was just a bit of a pain in the butt. Not too bad, but anyway. As you can see, I added some extra bracing. The reason for it, those of you familiar with these type of engine stands know that all of the bolting takes place at this rear flange. Obviously I was going to bolt to the aluminium plate because I didn't think that was very wise. How this universal plate works is it obviously connects to the mount holes, but I couldn't get it to position in a place that I liked it. Where this would go was attaching to too small of an area, I thought. And I was watching Ben's craft on YouTube, and I saw that he had some outriggers connecting to the center engine mounts. So essentially I've welded up some bars and added some 1/4-inch plate, and anyway, cut a long story short, I reinforced the mount because, I don't know about you, but this is kind of spooky having this engine hanging off like this, and I wanted to be 100% sure that we were safe and nothing was going to come crashing down. And I'm really, really happy that I bought the £2,000 rated stand because those other ones that are available, especially with the single skinny leg out front, just look too hazardous to me. I don't want any dramas. So next thing to do, I've obviously spun the engine round, made sure that any oil drips are dripped out now, and caught those. We've got to undo this 38 of these Allen bolts holding the lower pan on. So let's get that unbolted and see what's going on the inside here. Some of these Allen bolts got a lot of gunk in them, so before you try and break them free, make sure they're cleaned out. Right, now they took a little while to undo, a little fiddly around the front here. Now I'm not sure that I can pull this off with the pulley still on, because I know the oil pump sits here with a filter housing at the bottom, and I think it might come into this front part, but I don't know that. So you will see, won't you, along with me. First time this has been exposed for, oh, easy peasy, for a very long time. It sits back further than I expected. So, well, interesting. So, before we go any further, let me get this pan in a place that you can see, and you'll see what we found. You can see in the bottom of the pan there's shards of metal, which I'm assuming is part of the piston rings, and that's what caused our problem on number 5. I don't know what that is, but there are definitely a lot of shards of metal in here. See, there's a big chunk, look at that. So one thing I am happy about is when I very first got this engine, I didn't try firing it up because it wouldn't have done any good, would it? So we pretty much know where all that lot came from, don't we? Okay, so that's that. Let's have a look in the crankcase. Well, there it is. Already I can see, look, there's a little bit of metal right there, let's see. Let me get my magnet. Look at that. There we are, get in focus. Look at that big chunk off of there, look. Yeah, that's got to be piston rings, isn't it? See the slight curve to it. Man, that had a catastrophic failure there. Yeah, big chunks of it down there, look. That was obviously in the bottom of the oil pan, obviously because we tilted it over. Big chunks lying there. So I'm glad I didn't start it up and cause more problems. Not that, you know, we're doing a full rebuild, so everything's getting replaced anyway. So there you have it. Look at that beast. The 6.3 bottom end. Bit of a monster.
yeah, a single chain for the little oil pump there. Little tensioner thing there, right there. Assuming that's something we should replace due to we're in here. That's quite a monster, isn't it? Look at that. There is, yeah, no gasket, just a straight connection here. So obviously this surface has to be in nice shape. Clean all this surface so I've got a nice seal, but no gasket of any kind. Certainly no, gunk put on there. Right, this tray to the left here is what I've fished out of the oil pan and the backside of number 5 cylinder piston, I should say. There is look, those little pieces there, looks like an oil scraper ring, and just shards of piston ring. So obviously we found the issue, I think. So let's have a little look at the oil pump filter here. Magnet on there. See more of it. I think there's more in there. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It's tried to do its job here by the looks of it. My gosh, look at that. You can hear them all inside there. That's amazing. Yeah, so I'm assuming this is why he stopped driving it. Major failure on number 5. What we got to do now, I've got to go to my buddy Urban's because he's got a big puller for this guy, so I'll pop over there this afternoon, get this front plate off which holds the front seal, and we can get this pump off, chain off, and then we can look at this little tensioner, see what needs doing there. Hopefully the shards haven't damaged any of the gears or anything like that. I'm kind of curious to see what this piston number 5 is like, so maybe we'll do that and then we'll call it a day. That's a 15mm socket, and just make sure, yeah, this is number 5. I'm not sure what these guys are torqued to. Not too bad. Some people suggested just try driving it out of the location. I'm very glad I didn't do that. Cause all manner of more damage. Now, I don't know whether this is going to come off very easy. This cap probably not. You need a little light tapping. I know what. I'll just try a light punch on the ends of the studs here. Small enough that it doesn't interfere with any of the threads. Just give it a few little blows here. There we go. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Not that it matters. This piston, my gosh. Okay, let me get you in close with that. That flew out of there. That was very unexpected, but I don't really care because that piston is shagged. So I really didn't expect that to come flying out like that. But obviously be very cautious on the next ones. But it really doesn't matter because look at the state of this thing. And I was expecting this all along. Chips of the ringland come out there. All the piston rings broken away. Pin as loose as hell. A lot of rock on there, so there'd have been a lot of piston slap. And look at that. Complete and total failure of this piston. No wonder No wonder that cylinder didn't survive in very good shape. Holy moly, look at that. Now, I'd love to get some feedback on, I'm thinking this is a massive failure of the gasket and constantly overheating and just someone keep driving, I'm assuming. But wow, look at that. I'll get some photos of that and post that on the group. Well, there you have it. So, as I say, I really didn't expect that piston to come flying out of there like that, so that was my fault. But again, I don't really care on this one. One of the bearing caps on number 5 crank bearing, and you can see in the light there's a shiny spot here and a dull spot here, and there's some scoring here. So obviously that's been an issue. This is the top cap, and again, look, see, there's some discoloration here. So yeah, maybe is that due to the thing rocking around on that and just moving around a lot because of the pin failure, or obviously the disaster that happened up top. But obviously this is no good anymore. Just give that a little blast off and wipe down. That to me looks really nice, no scoring. Obviously we're going to check tolerances and everything with the calipers, but that looks to be in good shape. I'll just show you how I get the next one out. Well, actually I've already taken number 6 out, we're taking number 7 out now. And just so we don't have anything crash to the ground, even though we're not reusing these pistons, I'm just putting a wood clamp with soft edges in the bore, so no drama there. Just give it gentle release. And what I like to do, remove the cap. Okay. The other bearing is spun round a little bit, but that's just on release. And when I go to push it out, making sure these studs don't scratch the main journal there, the journal of the crank. Take that clamp out and then just ease this guy down. Using my thumb and finger to stop it touching the crank. Okay, we bottomed out on the clamp. There we go. Nearly clear. Trying to hold on to it from not flying out again. There we go. Now we're clear of the crank. Now I can push it here. Right. See, they're all quite normal. I think the pins are very worn. Look at that. Rocking and rolling all over the place. I bet this is a noisy engine. See that one, as opposed to one of the other ones I picked up the other week that I thought I was going to end up using it, but there's no sloppy play there, so makes these look really good, doesn't it? So I'm going to carry on getting the rest of these out and move on to the next stage, taking the crank out. One more thing before I go. You remember on the leak down test numbers, obviously number 5 was our main issue, but remember number 4 we had that exhaust valve leaking, but I put a plus by it as well because I assumed there was leaking around the rings as well. And all the pistons came out of the engine, no problem, with the rings free of movement. They can move all over the place, you know.
But this is number 4 piston. And you see there's a lot more blacking and carbon build up, and the second ring is completely jammed. Top ring is loose, second ring jammed up completely on this side. The third ring's moving the oil ring, but this one was number 4 where we were getting extra leaking. So anyway, that was that one. Alright, while digging around in there, the block with my magnet, obviously once the crank's out, the whole thing is going to get flushed and cleaned. But let me show you. These 2 pieces of metal, they're circular, they're aluminium, I'm assuming, not magnetic. So you can see those guys, 2 circular pieces of metal in there, just sitting in a corner. So heaven knows what they are. So I think that's all I'm going to do today. This video is probably getting towards 30 minutes or so, and so until I borrow my puller from my buddy Urban, I can't really go much further because I have to take that front plate off the front that holds the front seal, and then we can get the pump off and assess that there's any more damage inside the block, and go from there, get that block down to the machine shop, get an assessment of the horrendous cylinder walls and how much we're going to need to bore out of this puppy to make it usable again. And again, there is the culprit. That'll be something to keep as a paperweight and a memento from this day. So obviously on the removal of the rest of the piston, I'm going to be a lot more careful. They don't go flying out like this one did. But again, we're going to be replacing the pistons anyway. But I'd like to keep those in case anyone needs some 6.3 piston standards. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Please hit like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one, part 5. All right, take care. Bye bye.